It's time to use our imaginations to talk about the new Blumhouse movie, Imaginary. Let's get into it.
Imagination.
Pretty good. Welcome to the KillJoy Jake YouTube channel. My name is Chauncey, and today we're talking a little bit about Imaginary. The latest supernatural horror flick from Blumhouse was written and directed by Jeff Wadlow. It was also written by some guys named Greg Erb and Jason Orumland. You know a movie's gonna be good when it has 3 writers and 2 of them you've never heard of before. The plot description for Imaginary reads, when Jessica returns to her childhood home with her family, she finds her old teddy bear, Chauncey, and sees that her youngest stepdaughter, Alice, has grown attached to it. After Alice's behavior becomes concerning and the games that she and Chauncey play turn increasingly sinister, Jessica starts realizing that Chauncey is much more than the stuffed bear she believed him to be for all those years. A few notable cast members in Imaginary include DeWanda Wise, who had a small role in Jurassic World Dominion, as well as Dane DeLiegro, who played the Predator in Prey from 2022. He also plays Big Chauncey in this movie, which is what I like to call Chauncey when he gets angry. Not a spoiler, by the way, this is a publicly released image. Director Jeff Wadlow might be a familiar name. He's made a couple of Blumhouse outings so far, including Truth or Dare and Fantasy Island. I just discovered that I have a weird connection to director Jeff Wadlow because he made a movie back in 2008 called Never Back Down. Actor Sean Ferris plays the lead role in this film of Jake Tyler. Hey, that's me. And over on Rotten Tomatoes, Imaginary currently has a 24% from 29 critics. But what do the critics know anyways? Alright, first off, let's do a spoiler-free review of Imaginary, and I'll give you a little warning before I start putting some spoilers into the mix. It was hard to go into Imaginary with a positive outlook, considering that the trailer looked very formulaic and like a movie I had already seen before, especially from this same company. Unfortunately, it appears that Imaginary is just the same rinse and repeat paranormal movie you have already seen 1,000 times from Blumhouse. Not to give away any specifics, but there are entire plot elements that are beat for beat exactly the same thing as another movie you've seen that came out less than a year ago. I'm honestly shocked with the laziness in the writing of this movie. I cannot believe they ended up doing that. It's one thing if this movie came from a different production company, but because it came from Blumhouse, that's the most shocking element of all of this to me. Like, at least wait more than a year before you decide to copy your own homework, dog. This movie tries to take itself a little serious, like there are some moments of drama throughout here, but like none of them can be taken seriously due to the fact that all the performances are so over the top. The movie is formulaic, the scares don't hit half the time, and Chauncey is definitely not our next horror icon. If you're looking to see this one in the theaters, it might be one to skip. I don't have much else to say about the movie without talking specifics, so let's talk spoilers. Spoilers for Imaginary moving forward. Do not go any further if you don't want this movie spoiled. Like I said a minute ago, I definitely went into Imaginary a little biased. After seeing the trailer, I wasn't super impressed. It looked like a lot of the same that has already come before from the same company. Pretty much every year, Blumhouse releases a paranormal horror flick of some variety, and a lot of them feel exactly the same. This comes from where the company started, of course. Movies like Insidious, Sinister, Paranormal Activity, all were big hits for this company early on in their career. But now I just feel like they're resting on their laurels, especially with movies like Imaginary that feel so rinse and repeat. And this is one for the books in terms of repetition, man. I mean, this literally borrows the same third act from a movie we saw less than a year ago from the same company, Insidious: The Red Door. And I'll tell you what, man, I didn't like the idea of painting over the doorway to the supernatural realm back in July of last year. I don't like it now in March. The most shocking thing about Imaginary is how lazy its script is. I cannot believe they just yanked the same shit from Insidious: The Red Door and put it in this movie and put it back in theaters, trying to sell it to us like it's an original thing. Maybe I was just watching this one wrong. Is it just the scary movie version of Insidious? Pretty much. Going into this movie, I really thought worst case scenario was this was going to be a little generic, a little formulaic, but still its own thing, but it's not even that. I hate how negative I'm being, so I'm gonna try to say something positive about this movie. The nail sequence that was shown to us in the trailer is admittedly pretty effective here. If there's any highlights of this movie, it's that sequence being so slow as the girl raises her hand to just smack down on the nail and DeWanda Wise thankfully comes in last second to push it out of the way, only scraping through her wrist a little bit. Whew, okay, that was some pretty good tension right there. Gotta hand it to him. Imaginary also gets some major props for using a big practical costume towards the end of this film, even though it is woefully underused. Chauncey turns into this big angry bear with these nasty looking teeth, and it's honestly a sick looking design, but it's only in the movie for less than 5 minutes. The performances in this movie are so unbelievably over the top, and the choppy editing doesn't do it any favors either. There were a few dramatic beats in this movie to make you feel for the characters, but it resulted in my girlfriend and I absolutely losing our minds laughing in the theaters. There's a sequence where a child psychologist comes over to talk to Alice about her imaginary friend, who DeWanda Wise's character Jessica is very concerned about. This comes after Chauncey apparently makes her do that thing with the nail in the board. Ooh. Alice is having what seems like a pretend conversation with Chauncey, but it is unbelievably funny because she's doing the voice for Chauncey at the same time as she's talking with him. Now, it's tough to criticize a child actor's performance, but I honestly feel like this is a situation where she was simply set up to fail. Piper Braun actually gives a good performance when she's in character, but when they like intercut her voice as Chauncey responding to her, that's what makes it ridiculous and doesn't work.
Baby, we shouldn't be friends! No!
I do want to make it very clear that it's funny because of the way that they edited it. Like, it's very clearly two different takes of audio that they spliced way too close together, and if you just like kind of listen to the movie, you'll notice that. Whew, you can tell this movie was rushed in post, man. Yikes. Another sequence like that where the editing is rough and doesn't make the performances any better. They introduced this character Gloria so that later on in the film, the older sister, Taylor, will go over to Gloria's house and then be told about the imaginary friends that are basically evil. That part of it like kind of works because I guess you had to get the character of Taylor to believe in the imaginary friends, but it's tossed almost entirely on its head when you get this twist that Gloria wants to go to the Never Ever, this imaginary dimension where childhood dreams can come true. They of course go there in the third act to save little Alice because we have to follow Insidious beat for beat here. How else will this be a success? And then Gloria goes on this nonsensical rant about how we can all be kids forever here, to which she then immediately gets eaten and results in the only kill in this entire movie, which is off screen. Okay, this is a PG-13 movie. I'm being a little harsh there, but come on. Another twist that happens in this movie that I honestly didn't hate is the fact that the only people that can see Chauncey Bear are Jessica and Alice. You think there's been a bear in this entire movie, but there actually hasn't been. But there's also a plot hole here because the character of Liam does see the bear earlier on in the movie. So how does that make any sense? Why can the random boy across the street see the bear, but Taylor can't? And you might have thought that the twists were over in Imaginary, but oh no, there's a fake out ending, ladies and gentlemen. Jessica's character apparently did not see Insidious the Red Door and forgets to put black paint over the supernatural portal once she exits for the first time. We flash forward a couple weeks later into the future, but she's still in the imagination land called the Never Ever. Oh my god. Everyone has these really like creepy button eyes, which I actually kind of liked. That was a pretty cool effect. But Taylor saves her, they get out of the Never Ever. It was barely an inconvenience. My biggest complaints with this movie is that it just doesn't have a backbone. It didn't want to do something different. It was just gonna beat for beat rip off Insidious. But I'll tell you what, if this had a super dark ending where all of the characters got trapped in this other world and they're like dead, I would have loved it. I would have been like, okay, you know what? I had to sit through all of that to get to this ridiculous ending, but I'm here for it. My thinking behind this is that this is clearly a cash grab. If you're gonna do that, if you're gonna do a cash grab movie, you're gonna get all these horror fans to come to the theaters to check out your film, at least make it a little worthwhile with an over-the-top ridiculous story that is so far gone it betrays everything you know about paranormal horror flicks to date. Killing this entire family would have been hilarious, man. Like, what a way to end this movie. A masterpiece, 10 out of 10. On a final note, I don't want to come off as a Blumhouse hater. I'm actually a huge fan of this production company. I really am. And a lot of this like anger, a lot of this like, oh, I wish this movie was good, comes from a place of passion. A lot of movies scared me as a kid because of course they did. I was a child. But I'll never forget turning 13 years old and the first movie I was able to see was Insidious. Oh my god, that movie scared the hell out of me, dude. The first time I saw that Patrick Wilson jump scare with the motherfucker behind him like that, I was like, oh no, oh Jesus Christ. For that reason, I will always be a fan of Blumhouse, but it just makes me sad to see them not putting out any good releases lately. Five Nights at Freddy's is only an enjoyable movie if you've seen every MatPat lore video. Totally Killer is a direct ripoff of a movie from 2015 called The Final Girls. Insidious: The Red Door is just like this movie, literally. And Night Swim I pretty much have the same review about. It is just an Insidious clone. Do I even have to mention The Exorcist Believer? Come on now. I think things are about to turn around for Blumhouse though, because we have some very exciting releases coming at the end of this year and the beginning of 2025. Let's talk a bit about those for a second. Leigh Whannell's The Wolfman comes out the same day as Terrifier 3 this year, which I'm very excited for. You'll remember Leigh Whannell directed The Invisible Man for Blumhouse back in 2020. That was a banger. On May 16th of 2025, we have Megan 2.0, and on June 27th, The Black Phone 2 comes out. So those are some very exciting sequels to good movies, in my opinion. I really haven't liked a Blumhouse movie since Megan came out in January of 2023, but I think that's all about to change here soon. The other thing too is that Blumhouse has always put out hit or miss movies, even since their conception. Do y'all remember The Tooth Fairy with Dwayne "The Rock" Johnson? That came out in 2010, easily one of the most exciting years for this company. So I have faith. I think Blumhouse is going to turn all of this around real soon here. Just stop making the same movie twice and don't put it in theaters again. That's all I'm asking. What did you guys think of Imaginary though? Leave me something about it in the comments below. Thank you all so much for watching my review of Imaginary. Don't forget to like this video and subscribe for more horror content like this. Please consider supporting me on Patreon by clicking that link in the description below. And as always, don't forget to kill it out there, y'all.